Hello everyone, I'm Skratch. Welcome to the channel. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let me know in the comments down below how is your day going so far. And a bit of topic here, guys, because I'm gonna have a bit of free time finally tonight. If you guys know any good movies, something that's maybe new, something that's been out for a long time, let me know in the comments down below. Definitely looking to watch a good movie, man. Like, I haven't seen a good movie in quite a while. In today's video, guys, going back to the main topic, we're gonna talk about champions that's seen a massive value surge recently. With the addition of Live Arena, for example. Now, even though some of these champions are extremely powerful, they've been off meta for Classic Arena for quite a while, and mainly because of Stone Skin, Reaction, or other champions that are kind of like eclipsing them. And I feel like with Live Arena, a lot of them are coming back to play. Now, I know in lower tiers of Arena, these champions, they've never really left, and if you have them, you're gonna make use of them 100%. But they've been a bit off meta for Classic Arena and the rest, so they're really strong in Live Arena. Now, I will have a few epics on my list. Mainly they will be legendaries because it is what it is. That's kind of like the case, and some of them are just so freaking powerful. But let me start with one of my most favorite one, guys. So if we're gonna go right here to Night Revenants, this is a daily login champion and not a 7-day login champion, but you're gonna end up in getting this champion after a while. So we have Eric's right here. Man, I don't know what it is, but so many people are using Eric's recently, and I feel like she's definitely seen a value surge because of Live Arena. Like before, yes, she was being used, but not as much. And basically, she's an HP based champion, guys. You can build her in multiple ways. You can either go on Stone Skin, go on a shield set, go on Savage. You can get a lot of value out of the champion, not just for Arena. You know, you can make an all-around build, maybe even a stun set or something like that, you know, to crowd control. With the A1, attacks all enemies, has a chance to remove a random buff from each target. With the A2, attacks all enemies again, has a chance to place a stun, transfers a random debuff from this champion to the targets that receive stun debuffs from this skill. And the A3 places ally protection on all allies except this champion for 2 turns, and a counter attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. And the passive can fill the thermometer of this champion if an ally crits, or can heal this champion if an enemy crits. So it's a pretty good champion all around and tons of fun. Now, I've seen all sort of comps where you only have like tanky champions together with her, champions that will keep her alive, and she's just gonna wreck the opponents. It's actually a pretty interesting champion, and how I mentioned, you can do an all-around build and get value out of this champion for PvE as well, Tag Team Arena, Classic Arena, Live Arena. So Eric's definitely, she definitely saw a massive value surge recently. Moving over to the next champion, guys, and this is one of my most favorite, and probably you will encounter it in the lower tiers of Arena, especially on Live Arena. I haven't seen this champion in Gold 1 or Gold 2. It's a completely different story. It's a completely different game, actually, when you're playing in those tiers, because you're fighting the biggest Krakens that this planet ever saw, okay? Let me just put it like that. So we have Alika, a beast of a champion. Man, she deals so much damage that she literally puts legendaries to shame, hands down. You want to build her on Savage, you want to build her on a Lethal, you want to build her on Instinct, or you want to give her some Cruel, Scree damage sets, depending what you have around. For a second, I just stopped. I was like, okay, is Instinct the set that I'm talking about, the one that ignores 20% defense, you know? With the A1, attacks one enemy. If you fully book her, she has a 50% chance to grant an extra hit, guys. The hit is always critical. With the A2, on a 2-turn cooldown, some of the craziest multipliers in the game, some of the craziest damage in the game, attacks one enemy. On a 2-turn cooldown, will ignore 50% of the target's defense if their max HP is higher than this champion's max HP. Man, she hits so hard with this skill, guys. Like, I don't know how to explain you, but having 50% ignore defense in the skill already makes this a force to reckon with, okay? Very powerful. With the A3, attacks all enemies, 100% chance fully booked of increasing the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 2 turns. So this is on a 3-turn cooldown. if you give her a bit of accuracy as well, you don't need that much. Even if you're not increasing the cooldowns on their support champions, is enough to do it on their nukers just to put them in a bad spot. In case if they survive, if they're protected by some other champions, but I highly doubt it. The passive is pretty relevant because it's only working with her sister and that's not great, but trust me when I'm telling you guys, Alika, a very, very powerful champion. Moving over to the next champion that we have on the list, and that's no one else but my boy Staltus. So Staltus, he's been a very solid champion for a long time now. He's seen a massive value surge with the addition of the hard mode dungeons with Dragon 10. He's literally the best dragon champion that we have in the game at the moment for hard mode, and mainly because of his passive. Like, is beautiful. I never thought that Staltus will be so good in the dragon, but honestly, it kind of like makes sense, you know. Dragon Bane, you know, we have Mr. Staltus in here. Now, he's one of the few champions that is immune to defense down, for example, and weaken, because he's kind of like transferring them back, you know, so it doesn't matter. This has no cooldown whatsoever, which is good. Then, with the A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, if the target is under any debuffs, you're gonna decrease the turn meter. With the A2 attacks all enemies 2 times, each hit has a chance to stun. And this will be on a 3-turn cooldown, and you see, these skills actually have pretty high multipliers, together with the A3, which buffs his own increased defense for 3 turns, then attacks all enemies. And then he has a chance to land either decreased crit damage, either decreased speed, depending on what sort of champions they are. But man, these skills, they actually deal damage. He's such a solid champion. Shame that I'm using mine in the dragon. I do have 2 of them. I am definitely considering to build a second one for arena, honestly. He's just such a great champion. And then increases ally defense in all battles by 30%. Now, a lot of times, even in Gold 2, I'm seeing so many Staltus Dragon Bane. It's actually crazy how many people are actually using the champion in there, you know, like, definitely no joke. Then, of course, Ronda, she's been pretty good. A lot of people don't like her, and it's kind of like, well, she's not that strong, but then she's so freaking strong when she's used properly, you know, like, she's definitely very, very annoying. The next champion that I do want to mention, guys, and this is no one else but Glycea Soul Guide, or Glycea. Basically, she looks amazing as a champion, and she does provide quite a bit of RNG, but she is pretty interesting. Some of you might think, well, she's not bringing that much to the table with the passive, you know. A lot of times when you are doing live arena, for example, you're gonna see that the opponents might pick both of the lockout champions. Like, they're gonna go in Warlord Yumeko, they're gonna bring in lockout champions, and they're gonna bring in another super massive threat that you cannot ignore, and you're gonna be like, okay, who am I banning now? The lockout, who's a threat, or I'm gonna ban the other champion who's a bigger threat all around. And then you're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna ban that one, but I can bring in Glycea and reduce a bit the Warlord power, the Yumeko power, or at least have an attempt. Then you might be like, she doesn't really bring anything else, you know. You see the passive, these champion skills cannot be put on cooldown, but whenever an enemy tries to put either these champion skills or an ally skills on cooldown, places a freeze debuff on that enemy. Also has a 50% chance of denying the cooldown increase effects. So basically, you're gonna be able to use whatever skills you want with her. And what's great is that places a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns, also has an 80% chance of placing a freeze debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Fills this champion's turn meter by 15 for each freeze debuff placed by the skill. So give her accuracy and go and freeze some of the enemies out there. And it actually works pretty good. The A2 attacks all enemies, places a weaken, and steals a random buff from each enemy under a freeze debuff. Not the most powerful skill, but she does bring some utility. You have resistance aura for all battles, and the A1 has a chance to place a freeze and to do a debuff spread, to take 1 debuff and to place it on all the enemies under freeze. So she's definitely seen a value surge with live arena. I'm encountering, especially in Gold 2, more of them every single day. Then moving over to the next champion that we have on the list, guys. And this is kind of like my nemesis, okay? I'm getting my ass whooped by this champion on daily basis, okay? Let me just be honest, I'm getting my ass whooped by this champion on daily basis, and there isn't much that I can do about. And I don't have the champion myself either. He was a guaranteed champion, but I just didn't have the chance to go for him. Ragash. Man, he is so freaking powerful. Now, probably you guys realize this already, right? Attack-based nukers are very squishy. It's not easy to keep them alive unless you use neck rate, you're hiding them with a Duchess, or you're using some sort of block damage and killable, right? Well, the thing is, defense-based nukers are much better at staying alive. That's why Stealth is so powerful. Not only that, he brings his own increased defense and stuff, but Ragash does pretty much a very similar thing. So very good base stats on this champion too. Extremely good counter for Harima because he's strong affinity. With the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times and places an increased defense on this champion for 2 turns. So basically he brings his own increased defense. With the A2, attacks all enemies, fully booked 100% chance to land defense down and 100% chance to land the stun after attacking. And he deals so much damage, man, it's just crazy. With the A3, places a strengthened buff and an increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. And a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns. More damage reduction in here. And with a passive at the start of each turn, places a perfect veil buff on for 1 turn on the ally with the highest attack. So again, if you have a different champion, different nuker in there, it can actually hide that champion for your team. Or maybe you have 3 supports and you want to hide Elva, for example, or something similar. You know, you can do that as well. Inflicts 20% more damage against targets whose defense is lower than this champion's defense. So that's another thing. If you have tons of defense on him, you're gonna get to do extra damage. The next champion that I have on the list, guys, and again, is gonna be a defense-based champion, and he is very annoying. Like, you guys tell me in the comments right now, how many times you left the fight because of this champion? I'm very, very curious to hear it, and probably some of you guys know who am I talking about. Helicat. Everybody knew this champion as one of the best unkillable block damage champions for clan boss in the entire game. A one-man army, truly, because he is so powerful. Well, he is so damn powerful for live arena too. Like, different options on how you can build him savage, if you want him for DPS, or go more support and go with Stone Skin. I've actually done a guide on how to use him for live arena a while ago. With the A1, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a weakened debuff and ignores shield and block damage. So this is actually important because the passive will make him use this skill very often. And not only that is slow and tedious to constantly having him counter attack, but is just doing a lot of damage with this skill if you build him nice. With the A2, attacks all enemies, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's defense. The bigger the defense, the bigger the shield. The A3 places a block damage buff on all allies. So that's the very important part right here. If you're picking your team right and you're kind of like dodging the counters to him or banning them, he is so damn powerful. Then the passive effect, when the block damage buff placed on an ally is removed, stolen, or expires, places an increased defense buff on that ally for 2 turns. So this will enable other champions that are defense-based nukers, for example, to get an increased defense, deal more damage, or just have some support for the rest of the team and have that increased defense to be harder to kill. So the passive increases the champion's defense by 5 for each ally under a block damage, and counter attacks with the default skill whenever an ally is hit while under a block damage buff. So annoying, man. So annoying. But Helicat is a great champion to use for live arena. The next champion that we have on the list, guys, is gonna be no one else but Gala Longbraids. So as an epic champion, I gotta be honest, there are not many epic champions that really saw a massive value surge. Like, a lot of champions are like, well, yeah, I was using Gambo before, so I'm still gonna use him in silver live arena or whatever. That's my best snooker, you know. But champions like these that are a bit more niche, and because you can control what enemies you can ban, you know, what champions you can ban from the enemy team, it definitely gives them the upper hand. So Gala Longbraids she hits very hard, and the main thing with her is she ignores defense in her skill, which is very important in today's meta. Then grants an extra turn if this champion has full HP after using the skill. So you want to build this champion preferably on Savage, on Instinct, on Lethal, or you might want to give a Stone Skin together with Cruel, or soon enough, once we're going to get enough accessories, we're going to do Stone Skin and Savage. With the 8-2 attacks one enemy, will ignore 50% of the target's defense, and when attacking under a shield buff, okay? Then heals this champion by 50% of the damage inflicted and places a shield on this champion equal to the surplus heal. So you want to have either a different champion with a shield in there, or you want to have a divine set on her, something like that to make it count. And the A1 again attacks one enemy 2 times and ignores 30% of the target's defense. The Aura, 25% attack for all battles. Now the main issue is these champions are a bit squishier. It's a bit harder to keep them alive. That's why the new combination of accessories with Stone Skin is gonna completely change the way we're building champions. Too bad that we only get one accessory if you win in your group in the Hydra Clash. So just count how many weeks they are in a year, and you're getting one accessory per week. So it's painful. It's gonna take for freaking ever. Then another champion that saw a massive value surge from this faction, actually 2 more from here, Mountain King. Now, he was always a good champion, you know. 2 years ago, he was very strong for Classic Arena. He was still very strong for Tag Team Arena. But I gotta say, for the last 1 year or so, his value went down a lot. Like, to the point where a lot of people were disappointed to pull the champion, you know. And now with Live Arena, he's so much better because you can put a strong bolster set on him and just have a big protection because he has such a big HP and have damage at the same time, and just slowly pick your enemies one by one. With the A1 attacks one enemy. With the A2 attacks one enemy, ignores 50% of the target's defense. With the A3 attacks one enemy, ignores shield and block damage. The passive just increases the champion's attack by 50 each time this champion kills an enemy. So that again is a pretty good passive to get more attack because his damage is based on HP and attack. The main thing on him is the HP though. So Mountain King, very strong. Of course, UDK is a hard counter to him, but again, Live Arena, very easy to ban the champions from the opponent. Then Tormin. I've done a guide on this champion as well a few months ago, and you want to build him for damage with some accuracy. Now yes, sheep can be a problem to the champion, 100%. With the A1 attacks all enemies, has a chance to land freeze. With the A2 removes all buffs from a target enemy, then attacks the target 2 times, and that's good. Deals pretty good damage if you have freeze and HP burn, which is very unlikely to have them both, but you know what, it's still doing pretty good damage. And the A3 attacks all enemies, places a block buffs, a heal reduction on enemies under freeze, or has a chance to land a provoke debuff for 1 turn on enemies that are not under freeze. So that's very helpful. And with the passive, has a chance to freeze the enemies whenever they get their thermometer increased or they get a buff. So that's actually very helpful. And if you're banning their block buffs, champion or whatever, it's actually gonna be super nice. He's a very strong counter against champions like Helicat, champions that buff a lot. Even Mitrala, for example, she cleanses the team, but she buffs, right? So that has a chance to freeze the enemies. Good counter against Marichka and Taras, where it's a bit more problematic for the simple fact that Taras counterattacks. But if you are giving him a decent amount of HP next to the defense, at least to survive the first hit from Taras, you're gonna be in a good spot, you know, and you have a defense aura for all battles. Just ban the right champion in the enemy team and he's gonna do an amazing job for you. The next champion that we have on the list, guys, this is gonna be another epic, and I am a massive fan of this champion too, and is no one else but Durandil. So for the lower tiers, guys, he does so much damage. Very similar with Alika. He does do a couple of different things. So with the A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, he has a chance to land the freeze. With the A2 attacks all enemies, will ignore 15% of each target's defense, and will fill the champion's thermometer by 10 on each critical hit. on a 3-turn cooldown fully booked. So again, this is a champion that puts legendary heroes to shame, guys, okay? No questions asked. With the A3, attacks one enemy on a 3-turn cooldown. Royal Assassin will ignore 50% of the target's defense and places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns if the hit is critical. So basically, smack somebody and get the veil. Get protected to smack again on the next target, you know? And you have an increases ally crit rate in all battles by 15%. Definitely a big fan of Durandil as well, man. Like, him and Alika are probably my most favorite epic DPS champions in the game. Let me know how many of you guys are using any of them. Very curious to know. And moving over to one of our last champions that we have on the list. Not the last, because we have 2 more, but Hegemon, guys. Now, Hegemon saw a massive drop in value as well for the meta, for the high-end arena for the last 6+ months, I would say, since Stone Skin, Reaction, etc. He is really not what he used to be before. And with Live Arena, you can definitely find some good use for him. Now, you do have different options. A lot of times, enemies will bring in nukers, squishier nukers, and they're not really protected. And they might be tempted to ban a different champion in your team, or you're gonna force them to ban Hegemon, which does give you quite a bit of an upper hand, because if you build Hegemon for damage, or you build him for damage with a little bit of accuracy, you're gonna kill their nukers, which will put them in a bad spot. Georgit, for example. How many of you guys are using Georgit? How many of you guys are using Gembo? How many of you guys are using other epic nukers or legendary nukers that can be one shot by a Hegemon, you know? So there are many people out there, and doing this is actually very, very good. Now, I wouldn't recommend to build him like back in the day on a stun set and just go against the enemy like this, because you don't know who has Stone Skin, for example, and even with the nukers is a bit hard to kind of like know what to expect from the opponent, but it's more likely that they're not on Stone Skin, you know? And on stun set, yes, I could argue and say it could be great against Ukos. Go in front, Sifis, Ukos, whatever, arbiters, and just lock them, you know? So that's a good option, or maybe land a cheeky stun from the stun set. But I feel like damage is the way to go on Hegemon at the moment, you know? And you can definitely use him even in Gold 2 Arena. I'm using him pretty often, actually. And the last champion, guys, that is definitely much better than he was before, Eilil. So basically, the problem with him was that his damage was a bit underwhelming. The A3 was not really working, similar like with Georgie, to actually ignore the Stone Skin, and it becomes a ship pretty quick, you know? But with the A1, attacks one enemy, steals all buffs from the target the first time this champion hits them with this skill. So again, is a good counter against Helicats, a good counter against champions that get protected by Nacret and stuff like this, you know, so you can remove a lot of buffs. With the A2, attacks one enemy, will ignore Strengthen, Stone Skin, increase defense, and ally protection. Sorry, this is the skill that I meant to show before instead of the A3. And this was not working properly. And now, if this attack kills an enemy, fully heals this champion and places a Stone Skin buff on them for 1 turn, which is a very great move right here, to be able to just buff a Stone Skin if you kill somebody. And the A3 attacks all enemies. Before attacking, removes any increased defense and replaces it with defense down, removes Strengthen and replaces it with Weaken, places block buffs debuff on enemies not under increased defense or Strengthen before attacking. And nothing can be resisted. This is a big ship question mark, you know, but still, you can definitely find a better use for him now that you can actually just ban champions from the opponent, you know. And the passive is actually nice. I like the passive on the champion because it's increasing his HP and defense by 100 for every 1000 attack they have. So you can make this champion tankier, and fills this champion's turn meter by 10% whenever they receive a buff. So I feel like this champion's definitely got a massive value surge since the addition of Live Arena. I am very curious to hear your thoughts in the comments down below as well. Do you have any other champions that you would put on this list? What other champions are you guys using a lot now in Live Arena and stuff like that? I'm very curious to know. That was all for this video. Much love, appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next one. Peace.